Happy Monday and welcome to the Working Week on the Matt Sager podcast. I told you I'd have a guest this week, and I'm sure you thought I was just giving you one of those promises like, "Aw, kiddo, next weekend we're gonna go to that cabin and we're gonna go fishing and, oh, sorry buddy, something came up." I don't play those games. If I say there's going to be a guest, you'd best believe there will be one, and it's a terrific one. The inaugural guest on the Matt Sager podcast, I'm very proud to present artist, musician, my friend, Patti Rothberg. Sadly, she's not with me in the home studio. She's a couple miles away in Scarsdale, New York, but we're going to talk via Skype. Hi, Patti. Welcome to the show. We've known each other for...
longer than we want to admit we were alive.
Yeah, longer than probably many people listening are even old. Like, you may well be younger than the age of Patti's and my friendship. Patti and I are now doing this interview from a retirement home where we're being wheeled about and spoon-fed mush.
They're giving us pudding. It's really been quite nice. Tapioca.
Patti keeps saying that they're stealing from her. She's really upset about the orderlies.
They are very disorderly and probably drunk, too.
Yes. So, you've been... gosh, where do we even begin? Let's start. All right, as far as our friendship goes, we became friends in the 90s. You had a...
where we met.
I want to say, and this is really appropriate for you, but it's also true, I think that we were introduced by a mutual friend of ours on a subway platform. I think it was my buddy who was also doing some playing around there, and no offense to him. I love him very much. He's a great person. He might not have had the same success necessarily doing it that you had.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you measure it, because when I started doing busking, I was about as unsuccessful as you can get, because I was really just kind of like testing out new songs, trying to figure out how to play Rod Stewart songs, Blondie, The Tide is High. That was definitely one that I did over and over again. And just like getting the idea of busking to sort of come out of my shell, not so much to make money. And I think the most I ever made was like $11 in one sitting.
That's not bad.
So I went to 11. It was very Spinal Tap. I know. And it's not that bad. I mean, but to go from making $11 one day to like pretty much literally the next day, like $2 million, that was a strange jump.
Wow. And, our stories are kind of similar in that way, especially at the time we met, because I had basically gone from working first for free, then for an amount of money that's so low, I'm afraid that if I say it, K-Rock will sue me, because I'm sure it was below minimum wage. And then one day they were like, hey, we fired everybody. You're a DJ now. So we had kind of similar trajectories in that way, and it was at about the same time. And you were all over MTV with Inside, the hit.
It happened. It really did. It all happened pretty much in 1 year, in about 363 days straight.
Wow. My,
fame thing, where, I got discovered, that it was like this trio between a guy. I broke a string one day in the subway. This is the truth. I broke a string, and I went to this guy, Richie Bax, who was in the East Village. He's probably still there. He was like a famous guitar fixer guy. And I bought some strings, and this guy says, hey, aren't you Patti Rothberg? I went to the Guitar Summer Workshop with you. And we hit it off. We went to Benny's Burritos, and we talked about the fact that he went to NYU for production, and I went to Parsons, and we both just graduated and had no idea what we were going to do next, and he offered to produce one of my songs, and I had never done that before. I barely even knew what a producer was or did. So, so I came up to his apartment on 34th Street, and I mean, he could have been an axe murderer, but he wasn't, so that was good. And he set me up with one of those little popper stoppers and a microphone, and I played Inside. And believe it or not, it was like that version that they sort of, the record label later based the entire sound and vibe of the album on. that song, which was the hit. There was something that we captured. I think it's the fact that we didn't know what we were doing and we like almost didn't care yet. I mean, maybe that's what struck a chord in people.
Well, there's so much of that in the song. It's sort of about almost, again, you would know much better than me, but what I always heard in it was, and what I really related to in it was this sense of, ugh, what am I doing? Where am I going? I'm depressed. When I try to act happy, it kind of makes me more depressed. What the hell is going to go on with my life? I'm in my 20s and directionless.
Well, that's probably the best description I've heard of the song, from anybody yet. I don't know. I mean, I wrote the song in Paris, actually. And it was like, I didn't know, I was kind of agoraphobic because I'm a perfectionist and I had just learned French. I just started learning French. You don't learn French in a day. I knew how to like order food and just like do really basic stuff. And because I was so self-conscious about my French, I became agoraphobic and I hung out all the time listening to this one, they had like a heavy metal station in Paris. And I would listen to it all the time, and then I would like try to write songs on my guitar, which I at the time could barely play. And yes, it was my junior year abroad. I was like so far away from home, further than I ever had been. And yeah, I was like, what now? What the hell? I mean, that's what Inside is. Inside is what the hell.
I like that. That's a good mission statement. What the hell?
I just rephrased what you said.
I like that.
Make it sound a little bit snappier,
You know what's funny, too, is we started hanging out all the time, and I remember we'd hang out around K-Rock. I'd bring you there because we were hanging out. You liked hanging there. I liked having a friend with me. And this one jock who I'm not going to name, but I'm sure anyone who's familiar with me knows who it is, immediately thought that we were an item. I think he might have had issues with his own sexuality that he wasn't quite confronting. I think he was upset and threatened in all kinds of ways seeing me with any woman, let alone one. Sometimes we'd play your music.
Thanks.
And I remember I came in like maybe 2 days after the second or third time you and I were hanging out there. And he had a sidekick. Now I'm definitely giving him away without saying his name, but he had an on-air sidekick, and he was there setting up the guy's show. And he said, just so you know, who was the woman who sang the Dawson's Creek theme? Paula something?
Is it Paula Cole?
Yeah. He goes, just so you know, this DJ, who we're not naming, has been seen canoodling with Paula Cole. So it's not just you.
He tried to make me jealous with Paula Cole about you?
Yeah, or he tried to make me jealous, like, you're not the only person who's been seen with a happening 90s singer-songwriter woman.
Oh, God. I mean, that's so crazy, but I love it. And I actually remember specifically, I had a babushka on when you took me to K-Rock one time, and you asked me to write a jingle for you. And I still remember the jingle. He's the only K-Rock DJ with a college degree. Matt Sager on Q104. Oh, it was Q104.3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I wrote it in like 10 seconds and you put it on the air. And I was so happy.
Oh, yeah. People would do the most awesome stuff for me. Not everything about my radio career was ideal, but like the cool people that I met and how very cool they were with me. I remember that with you.
Oh, do you still have your radio IDs?
I've got a lot of my radio stuff. One of the great things about everything being digital now is that just everything goes onto my hard drive. But back then, every single thing we did would be a cassette or a reel-to-reel tape. And of course, every station jumped on the latest dumb technology that would never last. So the ID you did for me, I think, ended up being on a mini disc. Do you remember those?
Like, vaguely.
It was like the Betamax of audio. It was these little shitty cartridges. They, you and I were talking the other day about carts that looked like 8-track tapes.
Yeah.
This was going to be the replacement for those, but it was like the size of about a half of a floppy disk, and it had a little tiny CD kind of recording thing inside, and it was garbage. It was designed to separate idiots like my employers from their money.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that for a second, about the money aspect of changing media. For example, there were cassettes. Like there was a cassette of Between the One and the Nine, believe it or not. I think it was like one of the last albums that had cassettes made of it, like in the 90s. And also the internet was just starting out when my record came out. I think 95 was when it kind of exploded.
Yeah.
The internet, But it used to be dial up with a little AOL running guy. Remember that?
Oh,
it took
yeah.
Like a half an hour for it to start.
And when we were kind of getting to know each other and becoming friends, the internet, I remember the biggest thing was SonicNet just writing articles about music and Joey Ramone editing it or contributing to it or something. It wasn't until like 99, 2000 that iTunes came around and started actually distributing the stuff and selling it. That it had gone from a medium to talking about music to a medium that sold and distributed music through MP3s.
Oh, I see.
Like the internet was happening for us, but you weren't really, you could listen to Inside, but you couldn't buy it for 99 cents on an MP3. Like you could watch it on MTV.com and go, wow, the internet's amazing, with that awful dial-up modem and the scream it would make when you connected.
Right,
but you couldn't really sell your music through it at that point, other than, a CD through Amazon.
I feel like somebody's deliberately behind it making money on stupid things like, do you remember CD cardboard?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like that was like the biggest waste of paper ever.
Oh, it was horrible for the environment. So the CD was about, 3x4, a little square.
Yeah, you kids wouldn't remember this.
And then in the box would be a rectangle that was like 4 times taller than the CD. And there was nothing inside of it.
Nothing, it's just air.
Yeah, just more cardboard reinforcement, just killing trees for no reason.
It was really painful. And that was when there were still record stores too, because I remember like record shopping for these weird cardboard CD things. It was so weird. And then CDs also used to be, you would think that they were diamonds because of the way that they were like locked up in these case protector things. Do you remember
my God, yeah. Like for me to buy razor blades at CVS now, it's the same thing. Like a guard has to come out and grant you access, like it's the Ark of the Covenant or something.
Yeah, it's really, somebody's making money on the changes, that's what I think.
Absolutely.
And I don't know who they are, but they're not on OkCupid, I'll tell you that much.
You've been looking for that sweet, sweet CD box money?
I'm looking for whoever it is that invented that concept of going from the running AOL dude to like sweet CD box waste money. Whoever has that empire, they're not on CD Baby because they're not smart enough, I don't think.
Are you perusing the online dating sites? How is that going?
Let me tell you something. I've met everyone from the nicest, most giving, generous sweethearts to the biggest a-hole on the universe on CD Baby. On whatever you call that thing. Online dating. I'll tell you something, Matt. Like, I never considered myself an online dating person. Like, it just happened one day by accident that I tried it because my cousin Sarah said, have you ever seen OkCupid? It's really funny. They ask you questions like, would you date a guy who thought that the moon was bigger than Earth? Or like and I was like, oh, really? So it's like funny. Like, I thought it was like a joke, basically, which it kind of is. So I went on there, and the very first guy that I met ended up being my producer for 5 years for free. It was just, we met at Starbucks, and we hit it off like that, like instantly. And he said, I have a pump organ in my house, and I have Digital Performer, which to you kids, it's like Apple's version of a electronic tape recorder thing. It's like a way to make records now. Okay, so he had that, and so we made 3 records together in 5 years, and we had a great relationship. But then he got married, and our relationship just kind of fizzled, because he got married. So no more records there. But you know what that did? It led me to getting Logic, which is Apple's version of Pro Tools.
Oh yeah, I use Logic all the time.
Do you?
I use Logic, Twisted Wave. My go-to generally is Pro Tools, just because it's got most of the stuff I need. But
Okay.
Twisted Wave is really cool because you can use it on your iPhone and iPad and then export it to your Mac. So in that way, I like it a lot. But Logic is fantastic.
Yeah, I've been having a blast with Logic because of all the sounds it has. I mean, I like to play with like the arpeggiator, and like it has all these weird 80s sounds that I like. And throughout my entire recording career, all I ever really wanted to do was make albums like the Human League and Gary Newman and like B-52s, electronica. But for some reason, I ended up with this like guitar-toting Rod Stewart, Rolling Stones, rock and roll person. I don't know what happened. I mean, if your first hit is a guitar hit, you might end up a guitarist. It just might happen. It did happen to me. I play like all different. I'm also Joey Ramone in a all-girl Ramones cover band, which is like the smartest decision I've made in a while.
That is my favorite thing. I mean, I obviously was crazy about you for years before that, but I love that you're fronting a Ramones cover band where each of you is acting as, what's the name of the band?
We're called Rockaway Bitch.
I love that. And you're an all-female Ramones. You're Joey, which is the greatest thing in the world. Another thing that you and I have in common is that we were both really, really blessed to have the Ramones, Joey in particular, in our life, and that love and communal kind of spirit that he had.
I mean, I didn't actually know him certainly nearly as well as I would have liked to. I met him many times, but it was always like a sort of a handshake, or just like, he was always very inundated by other people at the same time. So like, I didn't get to really hang out with him, but I feel like I grew up with him. I feel like people told me that I reminded them of him since I was 14 years old, I was in this other band called the Heavy Metal Video Darlings, which was essentially a cover band of metal bands like Rat, Def Leppard, also all girls. It was fronted by my friend Sharon, and that's how it started. I was the guitar player of that band, and we were supposed to be like video vixens that got tired of getting their asses pinched or whatever, and like wanted to learn our own instruments and form our own band. So that was the Heavy Metal Video Darlings. And I took a permanent leave of absence from that band for a while, and then the bass player, whose name is Raquel, she's an absolutely amazing bass player. I mean, anyway, I can't go on enough about how talented every single member of this band, is. She asked me if I wanted to be Joey Ramone. She's like, I have a trio, but we play the Ramones. Would you want to be Joey? And apparently they'd gone on a long time as a trio, but no Joey. Like, it's kind of weird, but okay. I've heard all kinds of bands doing things, especially cover bands, they do things in funky ways, or like, maybe they don't even have a drummer or whatever, you hear everything in the music business. So, my point is that it took me less than 5 seconds to say yes. Do you want to be Joey Ramone? Yes, I do, so that's how I got in a band, because I just love him so much. And it was so natural, like I just fell into the band.
It is amazing. And I sort of did feel this about you before in the most complimentary way. And I'm so glad that you said it first, because you clearly get it. You understand that it is a compliment. Yeah. But there is something Joey Ramone-ish about you. And I mean that in only the most flattering way.
I couldn't think of any other way to take it. I love him. So, look at him. He's very, very tall. He always reminds everyone of Howard Stern, and who both of us also had a certain liking to.
Sure.
Maybe you had mixed feelings being that you worked with him. I don't know, but.
Oh, I loved him more for that. He was a wonderful guy.
Oh, good. Okay. So, yeah, I listened to Howard Stern since I was like in preschool, because my mother was on radio. She was on YNY radio right after Dr. Ruth Westheimer. And so I would go to her shows, and I actually met Dr. Ruth, and when I was 10 or 11 years old, she asked me if I was having good sex. And I think she was joking. I hope she was joking. I really don't know. I was like a foot taller than her even then. Do any kids out there remember Dr. Ruth?
I'm sure they do. I think she's still kind of a cultural icon.
Oh, I'm sure of that. But I mean, does she have like a podcast or something?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I could get her to, and I've been in the market for co-hosts. Maybe I could get her to sit in with me one day, talk about how I am and am not performing on the podcast, of course.
Right, of course, that's what you meant.
Yes. So, but yeah, of the many, many people who I worked with, some of whom I had problems with, Howard was certainly not one of them. But I do remember one of my many, many fond memories of you is when I was jumping ship from K-Rock and negotiating with Q104, and I had a panic attack. I couldn't call in sick to go negotiate with Q104, and you did something only a real true friend does. You called my terrifying monster boss, Steve Kingston, and we're like, I'm Matt's sister and he's sick. And I remember him going, are you sure you're Matt's sister? Because you sound a little bit like Patti Rothberg.
No, come on.
You don't remember this?
Well, that part I definitely don't remember. Him recognizing my voice and denying that I'm your sister. I don't recall that. But although, I mean, I believe you.
Yeah.
Of course. That's a big day for you, so you would remember it, right?
Well, maybe. I mean, there was a lot going on. I was in the midst of a panic attack.
I know all about panic.
Dealing with the pressures of one job while very excitedly arranging another job. I mean, like, I complain about my radio career, but the truth is there are a couple of ways in which I was very lucky. Most people, to get on New York radio, you got to start in, like, North Carolina and, like, live like a nomad and travel around the country. And I was never going to do that. So getting hired, living in New York, at a New York station, it's the only way
New York?
Yeah, I was born and raised in the Village.
Oh, wow. You're still there.
I've never lived anywhere other than Greenwich Village. I mean, I've spent, summers abroad, and I spent a summer living in L.A., but that was for work. It was a temporary residence. And I'm very proud that I've managed to somehow still not be priced out.
Yeah, that's really something, especially right now, because that's like the price is out. Like every neighborhood is gentrifying and turning into a weird, like, Target CBGB's, like, weird thing.
It's like there's nostalgia for when it was affordable, but they're making it unaffordable because they're, like, doing malls of, like, this is the CBGB mall. I think wasn't there a CBGB airport lounge where, like, you show up and order a $20 martini and they're like, thanks for coming to CBGB's. It's like, I'm sorry, if there's not piss on the wall, this is not CBGB.
Right. It's a certain smell that is begot only by years of piss caked into the walls. they have a pillar still there in what's it called, John Barbados, that's like left over from CB's. And I think they must have somehow disinfected it without affecting the stickers on it. But if you go into John Barbados, which I somehow ventured in, I was brave. I don't know why I did, but I guess I wanted to see what was left of it, like, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
And there was really, like, nothing left of it. It was like walking into the Gap. And then there was this one pillar, in the back, that had some original stickers from the day, And it's still, I just now am realizing how lucky I was to have played CBGB's and the Continental Divide, like, at a time when you could still call it back in the day, like, which was the early 90s. I mean, basically, the day was 78, the day, there are people walking around that were telling me, ever since the minute I set foot into CBGB's, like, oh, you don't know, you don't remember, back in the day when...
Cheetah Chrome punched Mick Jones in the face, and that was...
No, I missed that. I'm sorry, okay? I was like 2 years old. Leave me alone,
Yeah.
It's like, take your pick. Either you were cool or you were a baby at that time. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So now the 20-somethings, I guess they go into Target, and I'm not knocking them because everybody's born when they're born. And people are, I heard this really interesting story about in Japan, they put on a record, literally they put a phonograph on, and people sit with their hands folded in their laps and listen to a record in a stadium. And that's the show. People pay money.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, isn't that interesting? Because that's become a lost... You know, it used to just be you'd come home from school, you know, like PJ Souls in I Want You Around in Rock and Roll High School. You know, she plops down on the bed and she puts on the headphones and a record of Road to Ruin.
And that would be our life. And now, in an attempt to sort of understand what life was like before everything was so... I don't want either you or I to come off like old curmudgeons. Back in my day, we pissed on the wall.
Doing. Right, that's exactly what I'm doing by telling you that...
You know, in my day, you'd wake up and try to go to CBGB's and Johnny Thunders would be passed out having an overdose right in front, and we liked it.
I've heard that story a million times.
Oh,
from
yeah.
Different people.
Well, I think everyone who's got a Johnny Thunders story, I mean, it's going to involve sadness and drugs. That's just how it went.
Yeah, I know. And you know what? He's someone whose music resonates with me, too. Like Joey Ramone. You know, like, he's got that whole thing alone. He's slouched in the corner. He looks kind of like Keith Richards, but he's like... He's definitely got his own amazing, unique persona. And that sound of his guitar is in a Jeff Beck way, like the guitar talks. Like he is a real guitar player in my head, Johnny Thunders. And so I think that's why so many people love him, and it's not because they vomited in his lap or their lap. I think they love him more because he's really talented, and they're kind of like pushing for him because he was such a junkie and he was so ill, and like they wanted this. You know, some people would pay their money and they'd say like, oh, let's see if he'll fall over today, you know, in a mean-spirited way. But then there were just way more people, I think, that were just fans that didn't want him to see him go, you know?
Yeah, I mean, lots of people had this morbid fascination, and I think the human condition, it's kind of sick, but I mean, I think we know it now a lot better than we knew it then, because now 9 out of 10 TV shows are like the world's biggest tumor. You know, my wife is addicted to eating Tide Pods. Like, so much of what we do is
on the internet that they're doing away with coffins and they're going to make fetal position pod trees of humans when they die.
So, yeah, I mean, we definitely do have this tendency to really love the spectacle of sadness and freakiness, but Johnny was a lot more than that.
I think so. Well, I think you had to have, you know, an older friend indoctrinate you into, or, you know, having seen a movie or something where you actually resonate with his talent and not his, like, legend. You know, of course, the song Goodbye England's Rose by Elton John just popped into my head because it's like, you know, goodbye, like your legend, what's the line? Your candle burned out longer than your legend ever did, or something like that. Probably cheesy that I quoted that. I don't know. Judge me. I don't care. I'm the age I am, and that's the way it is.
I like that he was brave enough. I mean, this is a very ballsy thing to do one maudlin song, Candle in the Wind, about one woman who died. And then 5 years later go, oh, another woman died. Goodbye again to you. This time it's Diana. Before it was Marilyn.
I mean, that's very Hallmark card. Like, you know, that you just keep getting hired to, like, sing songs about the same song about dead women.
So, getting back to live women, back to you. Between the One and the Nine was a nice surprise hit.
It did okay. Hey, thanks a lot.
I mean, certainly as debuts, and especially as unexpected debuts, because you're hanging out at busking and meeting guys to date them, and it turns out they're produced. Like, as far as fortunate circumstances that lead to success go, that is a pretty big one.
Yeah, it was like a slip and slide. Like, it happened so fast and so, like, you know, you wake up and now we're going to go on Oprah. Okay, now you're going to Japan. All right, now you're going to get to choose between any guitar player in the whole New York City area that you want. You can now choose them. That was a good one because some of them were guys that like I liked that they didn't pay any attention to me, or so, and then they were like auditioning to be in my band, and I was like, this is some kind of retributional thing. I don't know. What is this,
Are you trying to say you were the Harvey Weinstein of 90s rock?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it was just kind of a cool day to be able to like audition whatever guy I wanted. I didn't pinch anybody's ass. I was very good about it. I was very professional.
Well, that's good.
I'm sure they probably would have preferred if I had said, okay, now turn around, like in 9 to 5, like turn around.
Hike up that kilt a little bit there, guy.
Hike up your kilt a little more. Show your world to me. That's my Dave Matthews.
Now, what was it? That's a good Dave Matthews. I like that.
Did you like that?
You can't see it, but I'm doing my impression of that creepy-looking violin player he's got alongside him all the time.
I've never seen. A long time ago, I went to see Dave Matthews, and it was like dusk, and I saw him. He looked like about the size of a peanut, and he was wearing a tie-dyed T-shirt, and that's all I've ever seen of Dave Matthews.
What was it like being on Oprah? How weird was that?
Well, actually, I was having like a total manic episode panic attack, so it was extra freaky. Like, I could have been anywhere doing anything in that particular state of mind, and it would have been like being on drugs. But since you asked, it was really cool because Oprah is really, really nice. That particular show was more about my manager than about me because it was called Amazing Discoveries, and it was about the fact that she heard me in the subway and then decided to take the chance of managing me and like taking it to the next level, and it somehow was the right timing and it worked, And then so they showed my video on Oprah. It was almost like watching reality happen on TV. I mean, it was so surreal,
Well, tell me about what's going on now, because you got a box set, and that really fascinates me because A, there's the body of work that you have already, which is great. And
right.
Then B, I've deliberately not asked you this because I wanted to ask you off the cuff here in the interview about in this age where everything is digital and we own so little stuff like CDs and albums. What is in the box set? What's in the box? What's in the box?
Okay, well, in a way, the box is kind of like a coffin for the CD because I always intended to be an illustrator for albums, like those big giant things that have vinyl inside of them. Like I always wanted to be, that's what I thought I was going to grow up and be. Ever since I saw the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper at age 6, I'm like, I'm going to illustrate albums. This is what I want to make. And then it got smaller and smaller and smaller until it was the size of your thumbnail. And then that's all we are, on Facebook, which is pretty much what anybody really is anyway anymore, is a thumbnail sized thing. Mm-hmm. And so, that becomes reality. It's not like you wake up every day and you go to like a big meeting and you see people, you see eyes, noses, mouths, and fucking, arms in real time. You see somebody's favorite picture of themselves with Joe Strummer. That's what you see. I mean, that's what I'm looking at right now talking to you.
I resemble that remark. I mean, if you want, you can look at me sweating naked. I look like Silence of the Lambs. I do me. Oh, I'm hot.
Can't believe you're even giving me the option and you're not choosing that. Come on. Show me. Come on. Let's see what you got. No,
oh, good Lord.
I don't know. I'm just saying, we've become a society of like totally detached, like fame whore little boxes. And the CD was the last of the Mohicans, baby. I could make a booklet and design it like in a way that actually was designy, a point that had certain pictures that went with other pictures. And so there's 6 of those and 1 download card with a pretty picture of me that's prepaid. And there's also a psychedelic poster of me that comes autographed if you order it.
And you painted this.
Well, all of the art in all of the CDs is are paintings of mine.
Yeah, that was something about the 1 and the 9 that I did not mention, but one of the things that made it so striking was it had all these beautiful paintings that you had done.
Thank you. That's so nice of you to say. That means a lot to me. Well, I was a painting major. I wanted to be like Degas or something. You know, I wanted to be what do you call that? Impressionist painter. Or George Latour, you know, he had all those paintings by the light of a candle. And I was always fascinated by the fact that you could sculpt with light, with paint. It was like, it's back to the whole thing about the absence of color and color itself and everything else. It's like, it's an illusion. And then there's also your eyeball. Oh, and by the way, there's also your opinion. So it's like, that's what art is. Art is like the combination of what you're actually seeing, you know, what you want to show, and also like the light in the room that affects the artwork too. And I feel like one day maybe I'll get my vinyl album, because I love the fact that my debut album is everything that I always wanted it to be, except for a big giant vinyl version of it. I mean, you unfold it and it's a poster. It's called 1 and 9, and it's got 9 panels that make up the one big one. And I also bust between the 1 and the 9. There's no more 9 train anymore, which is also very debatably poignant. But there's no 9 train. So once again, I'm like, where am I going? I don't know. But the box set is available. It's $99. And, you know, 1 CD costs $15. So we worked it out that you're definitely getting a deal.
Oh, yeah.
And you're also getting everything at once. It's like, you know, if you don't get this box set, you have to scramble around your room and be like, where the hell did I put my Patti Rothberg CD? Here's Candelabra, but I don't know where Double Sanders is. But with this, you get everything all in one neat little place, as I, the artist, intended for it to be.
The director's cut.
It's the director's cut, yeah.
So it's the complete library.
It's the complete solo Patti Rothberg library.
So where do we get the box?
You can order it right now off of my post office box. Send $99 by check or money order to Post Office Box 186H, as in heroin. I used to live in Lou Reed's building, by the way.
Oh, speaking of.
Exactly, that's how you remember. 186H. And then it's Scarsdale, New York, 10583. It's pretty easy. I assemble each one by hand, lovingly signed with a Sharpie.
That never happens. That is as close to an artist as you can get, people.
You will never see, like, it's not your standard box set. It doesn't look like a normal box set. It's like it's a real artist's piece.
Well, it makes sense. You're an artist. Is there a website or anything like that? Or it's just all old school?
Well, I do have a website, but it's Flash, which is like almost as old as I am. Nobody uses it anymore because there's like all these complications with it. And like since then, everybody has come in and like out-teched Flash. You know, like people who have Flash websites are like, you might as well just forget it.
Well, it's because Steve Jobs had some beef with the guy who ran that section of Adobe. He hated Flash because he hated the guy who invented it. So he made sure that the iPhone and the iPad couldn't run Flash websites. That's what killed it.
Are you completely serious?
Yes.
Oh my God, I've been sabotaged.
Yeah. It's all, like, so much of what affects us, so many of these big decisions that affect us are just millionaire assholes feuding with each other, not caring how it affects us.
Well, nanny poo-poo on you, Steve Jobs, for 2 reasons. First of all, I have a painting of you that says stink different, and it's like I took it from an old perfume ad. So it's a picture of him like bare-chested with a blonde, like, leaning over his shoulder, like adoring him. And it says "Stink Different." You have to see it. It's going to be in my next book. But also because my website lives, even though it's a Flash website, there's if you scroll down, it says HTML version. If you click on that, everything that I'm doing, including the Rockaway Bitch stuff, is all on there.
Nice.
So all my live shows, all my art, all my book signings, because I was in Barnes and Noble a few times. I have 2 books that I wrote. They're both called Extra Awesome. But the first book is it's more like photojournalistic, like autobiography, and the second book is sort of half the size of it, and it's like a supermarket rag, but it's all about me, and all the stories are true,
That's really cool. And what is it? Extra Awesome Volume 1 and 2?
Well, they're called Extra Awesome 1, A Journal of a Rock and Roll Goddess, something like that. I didn't make that up. Okay, so that's the first one. So it's more like, pictures of me on the road, the life of a rock star, the life before a rock star, I think it even has my, like, kindergarten picture, things like that. And also lots and lots of paintings. And the reason that it's called Extra Awesome is because I do so many different media. And, there's stories, there's jokes, there's poetry, there's discography, it's all there. And then the second one is called the Tell-All Book.
That is very cool. So after the box set, what's next? Are you writing now?
I am. I am working. I have several collaborations that are all available. If you go to Reverb Nation, you can listen to them all, but you can't download them. One of them is called BALL, which stands for Badass Wannabes Limited. And it's a cross between ABBA, AC/DC, and, like, the Cycle Sluts from Hell, who, if you grew up in New York, you may have been lucky enough to see. They were, like, the best band ever. And they were a huge influence on me, even though you can't tell from, it's like a far cry from Inside. You can't tell that that's what I was listening to. But... So, what was the question? I'm so confused. I'm talking too much. What did I say?
I said, are you writing now?
Right. So, I have a collaboration with this guy, Sean Altman. We started it. This is how long ago we started it. We saw a Britney Spears album and we're like, oh, we think this is really popular. Let's write a song for her. So, we were like writing songs for artists together when we first started collaborating. And then maybe 3 or 4 songs in, we looked at each other and we said, this is its own thing, isn't it? We're not giving these songs to anybody, are we? And that became Dragon Meets Phoenix because there was a Chinese menu right there, and we saw the name and thought it was really clever. So that's one of my collaborations. I'm working with this amazing, multi-talented, multi-instrumentalist named Ray Palagy, whose wife is actually, she was in the Tom Tom Club. And she also played Mary Weiss in a production of the Shangri-Las for years, which I think is really cool. It's also very Ramonesy.
Oh, yeah.
So it all ties together. But this guy, Ray, we have a thing called Rothology, and that's just the combination of our 2 names. And what he'll do is he'll do kind of like a basic track, and then I will put a melody and harmonies and vocalize and put and play with it. And that's our project. And that's the most current one. We're about 7 songs in. It's not like I'm slowing down. I'm playing at a place called The Lodge in Woodstock with my amazing agent, who is also, in his own right, a great singer-songwriter, a drummer. He plays drums with me, as well as books my shows. And we have a band called Apron. And it started out as a joke because it was like, we're here to serve you. We only play what you want to hear. We're like Starbucks, but we're a cover band. And now it's real. So we play covers. I'm trying to get him to wear the apron, but I don't know if I can get him to do that.
Oh, come on. It's the name of the band. How can he have a problem with that?
I got to work him. I got to work him slow. I can't make him do everything cool all at once.
All right, I guess that's understandable.
And what else? There's many Rockaway Bitch shows coming up. They have a big Spanish following, like Spanish teenagers who love the Ramones. And now I never would have thought that there was such a specific contingency, but there is. Like, these Spanish kids love Los Ramones.
Ah, much like Marcy, you've tapped into this previously undiscovered group of Latinos and Hispanics who you would not have expected to be hardcore fans of your music. But boy, do they love it, and are they ever loyal.
Yeah, I think it's really cool.
I do too.
And I love the fact that the people run the gamut from, like, people who really were there. I mean, like, grandma, to, like, a 12-year-old who has a humongous hole in her nose and green hair, but, like, barely knows the words to Blitzkrieg Bop or something. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of diversity, Matt.
Believe me, I know. I'm all about it. And how about any more art, any more books, anything like that coming down the pipeline?
Well, since 1 and 2 are already on their way and in bookstores, and I'm in like a promotion mode, you will probably see very busk-like shows where it's just me and my acoustic, and then signing and maybe doing a little reading at certain Barnes and Nobles. I've already done a couple of those. But there is an Extra Awesome 3, and it exists in its entirety in my brain. It's the first one that doesn't have any text. It's all paintings, and it's called Seeing Stars. And it's got all paintings of celebrities and, like, celebrity puns.
Oh, I love those. I remember we were talking about this the other night, how I had a program director named Kevin Weatherly. And when you were trying to get on the air, you were doing paintings of all these PDs. And you did a painting of Kevin standing under an umbrella because he's in the weather.
Couldn't be more obvious, but yes, I do remember that. And I actually remember that drawing, that specific drawing. He's wearing a raincoat.
And it looked like him. He was this guy who was not particularly, like, I wouldn't know where to begin if I were to say, draw a guy who looks like Kevin Weatherly. But you nailed him, I thought.
Oh, if you watch the rockumentary of Rockaway Bitch, there's this guy that comes on that says, Rockaway Bitch is so pure to what the Ramones actually did. They nail it. They nail it, right? He says it like that. So from then on, I should say, we always say, I even made a sign. Like, I have my Gabba Gabba Hey sign, of course. But then there's this other sign that says, Rockaway Bitch, they nailed it.
That's awesome.
It's so perfect that you said that. Perfect. So there's a lot going on right now, and there's a lot coming up. I hope to keep making records, but what I do is I record on my Logic now. This is the first time, starting January of this year, that I haven't had a producer. Since 1994.
Wow. Well, so cool catching up. And Patti Rothberg is still kicking ass and taking names musically, artistically, in books, painting, mediums that I probably haven't even guessed at yet. A website that maybe I'll work with you and help you de-flashify it.
Oh, that would be, like, really cool.
Make you a web artist, too. And let's do one more plug, because it's a whole P.O. Box thing, and people are so unused to... What, you're saying it's not just a QR code that I scan with Instagram, and it sends me right to the link?
It's simple. Just get a check or money order, okay? And it's Post Office Box 186H. Scarsdale, New York, 10583.
And the website is pattirothberg.com?
Yes, it is.
With an I.
Mm-hmm. You can also check out rockawaybitch.com. There's some cool pictures on there.
Yes, that's right. I recommend both sites. And if you don't have Flash, just go to the bottom and click where it says to convert to HTML. And maybe I'll work with you later. Put together like a Squarespace website that's totally modern, very easy to maintain. Well, Patti, it's always so cool catching up with you, and I'm so happy about this box. There's nothing like real art by real artists, no middleman, it's not been digitized, you're literally getting it from the artist, hand packaged. I can't think of anything much more pure than that, and that's so hard to come by these days.
Thank you so much. Well, I have had such a blast. It's been great.
Yes, thank you so much, Patti. PattiRothberg.com. The always great Patti Rothberg. From Between the 1 and the 9 to the new box set and everything in between, including side projects like Thrust and Rockaway Bitch, Apron, and tons more. Go to the website to learn all about it. Thanks so much, Patti.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, that was awesome. The first of what is sure to be many interviews on the Matt Sager podcast. And if you'd like to be one of them, be you a musician like Patti, a comedian, would you like to maybe join the cast of the show as a comedy writer, voice actor? Being one myself, I'd love to have some more with me on the show. Perhaps a newsreader, another podcaster who'd like to cross-promote. Let's just get in touch with each other, shall we? Email matt@mattsager.com, call 646-535-4788, and hit me up on Twitter @MattSager, Instagram Real Matt Sager, Facebook The Matt Sager, my voiceover page is Matt Sager VO, and the podcast page is Matt Sager Podcast. And for more of those social links, episodes of this podcast, blog posts, articles, my voiceover reels, more contact info, and all kinds of stuff, head on over to mattsagervoiceover.com.